let's have a look at a few tips for Tank Squad. For those new to Tank Squad, this video will cover some essential tips and settings that can improve your experience. Today we'll dive into the UI and the settings and how they influence game difficulty, as well as general combat tips for procedural missions. Is there a difficulty setting for this game? Yes. Easy mode is playing the Germans and hard mode is playing as the Soviets, but in a fun kind of way, though I'll talk a bit about that a little later. The second multiplier of difficulty in Tank Squad is the UI settings. The game's other faction-agnostic difficulty curve, UI information. How much information you receive as the player can significantly boost or hinder your survivability, and how much risk you're willing to take. But these settings look no further than the gameplay tab in the menu screen. Use the gameplay difficulty settings to change the amount of information you receive between default, arcade and simulation. I won't go through all the settings in the difficulty drop-down, but if you're a new start, I recommend playing in arcade or default mode, which will enable the following three important UI settings, namely, enable aim prediction. Setting aim prediction to yes in the settings can predict where your shell will land over long distances, making it easier to land shots, and it'll show you if your shot will pen the target or not with a green, yellow or red cross. Show enemy markers. Set show enemy markers to on so that your friendly AI can tag units, as well as you being able to tag them and persist them on screen by middle mouse clicking the target. This helps situational awareness and helps you keep track of the enemy's location as you move about. Faction colors. Use permanently assigned colors, example red for enemies or blue for allies, for quick identification to figure out who's on your side and who's not. By default, the grey-blue color is usually reserved for Germany and red is reserved for the Soviets, so turning this to permanently assigned colors means the enemy will always be red and your friendlies will always be blue. Why do I bring this up? This Germany blue and Soviet red notation can be very confusing if you're not familiar with World War II games, so make sure the setting is switched to its default value, permanently assigned colors. Next up is an important UI key that may help if you're missing UI items like your map. Press the T key to momentarily show any items that you might have turned off, like the map or your ammo or your compass. My settings are somewhere between arcade and simulation. I turn most UI elements off, including markers, to increase the challenge. It's really up to you as you progress which training wheel you'd like to remove when you feel comfortable. Next up is driving mode. If you're new to the game, leave the game in automatic mode and mash the W key so that you can get used to how the game works first. And if you're feeling more comfortable with the game, I recommend turning on manual driving control, as this will allow you to control your tank's pace and approach targets with fine methodical control, particularly if you're driving a Tiger and you don't want to overexpose your weaker sides. Using first gear to slowly move up will allow you to stop and start the move as and when you see new threats appear on the horizon. I played on automatic for the longest time, but recently I discovered gears and I cannot really go back. I do occasionally go back using the shortcut key, which is the minus key on the keypad, but that's usually only if I'm driving a T-70 or a really nimble tank. And if you perhaps spot a target or you're caught off guard, you can immediately press the X key on your keyboard. This will bring your tank to a complete halt and stop you in your tracks. While we're on the UI, I thought I'd share my keybinds, which have saved me from having to laboriously reach across the keyboard for common tasks. Up bound my Q to command my units, caps to call in offsite support, and X to spawn in more units. This has streamlined my game and made managing my squad and offsite support a much easier task. The other important thing in Tank Squad is your viewpoint or your view orientation. Tank Squad has 5 player view orientations, namely third person, cupola, the gunner, binoculars, and the internal tank view. There is the full-on third person Rocket League point of view, which you can toggle on and off with the C key. This will maximize your immediate situational awareness, which I found really handy when I started playing. Perhaps you're navigating some rugged terrain, or you're looking for a puff of smoke to see where a shot came from. Press the C key to take you to third person. There is also cupola view, which you can alternate with third person by pressing the C key. I use this view most of the time as it's quick to access and is a good fast compromise between binoculars mode and the third person mode. This means I can quickly scan my surroundings, have good situational awareness, and most importantly, I can zoom really far and see into the distance to see what's shooting at me. Also, I can shoot from this view by holding my right click to turn the turret to track my reticle. It's a recent feature and I think it's a good one, as it also elevates my view by about around a meter, so I can see over cover if I'm concealed, which can be really handy. Then there is binoculars view, which you can access by pressing the B key. This is usually used in conjunction with the full sim style playstyle, and it does something similar to cupola view, except you can command your own gunner from here, as well as having an incredible zoom range. It also offers a marginally higher position, so you can peek over even higher cover, which can be handy in a really concealed position. Just be cautious, as you can get shot from peering at your tank, or getting taken out by airstrike or artillery. While in this mode, the AI will automatically find and fire at targets, meaning you can cruise around and pretty much let the AI do the shooting, which can be convenient if you're in a forest and it's hard to see. Just be aware that when you get back into your tank, the AI might have changed shells to HE to shoot infantry, so just make sure you put the anti-tank shells back into the gun. We get to the main gunner view, which you can access with the shift key, and this is where you'll be spending many hours in-game frantically firing at targets. It's pretty straightforward. You left click to shoot, scroll wheel to zoom, and space to shoot your machine gun. An important key you'll want to use from time to time in the gunner view is the control key while using the scroll wheel. This will change the speed of the turret rotation, so if you find the turret is turning too slowly, press control and scroll up or down. This might not be immediately obvious, but you'll want to use the scroll wheel to slow your turret speed down from time to time, especially when you're shooting long ranges and you're trying to hit a specific spot on the target and every pixel matters. And lastly, there is an internal view where you sit inside the tank sibling to your men. You can access this mode by pressing the I key, and this will put you in the commander seat by default. If you want to change seats, you need to unlock the crew mode by holding down the full stop key. Once done, you can change seats by pressing and holding your keypad 1, 2, 3 or 4 keys to shift positions within the tank, from the driver to the gunner to the commander to the radioman. And if you're a Sigma male and you're playing solo, then the AI will take over the other positions on your behalf, like the gunner if you choose to be the driver. Some positions do allow you to both drive and command at the same time, like the driver. It takes some getting used to, but it's a pretty marvelous feature in a tank game, and especially fun in multiplayer when you play with others, where each person fills a specific role. And I nearly forgot, you can actually get out your tank to repair or shoot other soldiers, or you can abandon your tank altogether if you get bored with it, and you can hijack a friendly's tank if you choose to. Right, so I mentioned difficulty early on, and it largely being associated with the factions, so I'm going to do a quick overview of the factions and how it relates to their difficulties. The Germans tend to have better armor and better guns, but they tend to field fewer numbers. If you're new to the game, play as the Germans and grab a Tiger tank. The general approach for the Germans is to take it slow and steady and avoid getting flanked, as the sides of the Tiger are the only real weak spot on the tank. Often the Soviets will try to rush you with more numbers, so don't overextend your line too far until you're sure that there are no more threats before moving on. If you're playing the Soviets, you are in weaker armor and you have weaker guns, so you have to work extra hard at flanking and ambushing the enemy from the side. This is the harder faction to play, hence calling it hard mode. As the Soviets, you'll need to learn the weak spots of the enemy tanks and the differences in the ammo types. The TLDR on the ammo types is APHEBC is your go-to shell, APCR you'll want to use for very heavy armor, heat rounds is a last resort, and HE rounds you used for soft targets and placements. The APHEBC or armor-piercing high-explosive ballistic cap is your stock standard go-to shell for most engagements. The ammo is plentiful and they're going to be what you'll be using throughout most of your game. They do all the heavy lifting and you can access them with the one key. Then we get to APCR or armor-piercing composite rigid. These on average give you an extra 5 to 50 mils of armor pen for a perpendicular shot, and they can be accessed with the 3 key. This extra damage will slowly decrease the further away you are. That break-even point for the Soviets between APCR and APHEBC is around 650 to 700 meters, after which you will start to lose the benefits in favor of the APHEBC. If you're playing the Germans, it's much higher and really a non-factor, so you can engage with APCR at any distance really. although it's less angle tolerant than any of the other shells, meaning for any given angle there will be less pen than say your APHEBC, although I rarely fire shells at tighter angles, so I've not really found it to be a problem. Ammo is more scarce, so save them for heavy tanks. Also, their drop trajectory is less dramatic than the other shells, as they shoot pretty straight relative to the other shells owing to their initial speed. Then we get to heat rounds, which you can access by pressing the 4 key. On average, they're not the greatest and offer the least amount of pen compared to the others, but they don't suffer from distance issues, meaning you can shoot them from pretty much any distance. That's if you can land them, because their drop-off trajectory is terrible at long distances. So really only use them if you've run out of ammo or you're in really close range. And lastly, we get the HE shells. These are rarely used unless I'm taking out placements or large groups of infantry. These are your soft target shells and should only be used for such. Reloading times can be slow, so I only really use them if there's no threats nearby. If I need to clear out infantry, I'll usually bring in my own infantry to clear out a capture point. Alright, so this part of the video I'm going to go through some general combat positioning and movement tips that I've pretty much used consistently through my playthroughs. So losing tanks in this game is a form of learning your vehicle's weak spots. In Tank Squad, you're going to lose a lot of tanks, and that's going to teach you more about which parts of your tanks are weak against what guns. When your tank is knocked out, pay attention to the X-ray screen that shows you your replay of the shot that took you out. Likewise, the kill cam. Pay attention to what part of the tank you shot when you knocked it out. You're going to see these two screens again and again and again, so associating these kills or losses with your ammo type or the enemy's gun will help you understand when, where and how to aim your tank defensively in the face of the shots from these general directions. It'll also help you learn about the enemy's tanks and what to aim at when targeting an enemy tank. The next important gameplay element that will increase your survivability is using cover. Cover is important, especially for the Soviets given how vulnerable their tanks are to German guns. Houses, hills, bushes, wrecks, or even your own friendly AR tank shields can serve as cover which can conceal the vulnerable bits of your tank. This often means that you're only exposing the front of your turret, which is usually one of the most heavily armored parts of any given tank. You want to cross that open terrain over there. Is there a gully, a rock, a house? You need to be thinking about cover all the time until it's automatic, as an enemy hidden on the periphery can easily knock you out, leaving you stranded for more shells. Speaking of crossing and movement, again, if you're playing the Soviets, you need to think about your movements before you do them, especially if you're in the 45-ton shitbox KV-1. This thing moves very slowly, and if you turn the slightest while at a blistering 22 to 26 kilometers per hour, you will drain your momentum and slow down dramatically. Think of movement in Tank Squad as more transactional than continuous. This isn't World of Tanks. These are military-grade murder machines that are incredibly heavy, very slow, move slowly, and require a bit of foresight before moving forward. If you need to turn your gun in an emergency but you cannot wait, turn both your gun and your tank at the same time to speed up the process. Just make sure the risk is worth the reward, as you may be exposing your sights to a target off screen. Another important tip about positioning your tank defensively is to curve your tank. In Tank Theory, Armor is a whole 4-hour workshop video all on its own. I may make one of those one day when I'm more time rich, but for now, here's a quick tip to get a marginal boost to your tank's defensive position. Try to curve your tank slightly to incoming enemy gunfire. This maximizes the effective armor by a marginal amount and will increase the armor slightly. It's not a silver bullet and it won't protect your flanks, but in the face of shells or shell paths, it can help a bit. Why is this? For any given shell, let's say an APCR shell, the APCR shell has to work harder and push through more metal to get into the tank if that surface being targeted is curved away from the gun. Because of the curve, what was once 80 mils of armor is now magically transformed into 90 mils of armor because more metal has been shifted into the path of the shell. Although this isn't important, this 80 and 90 is called nominal armor, or the thickness of the armor, and effective armor, or the thickness of the armor plus the shifted armor in the path, given the angle. If you understand this, you understand the basic concept behind sloped armor. Play around in the ballistic lab to figure out how this works. You'll find that in the main menu where you can recreate all kinds of scenarios to increase your understanding of armor and ammunition types in Tank Squad. Right, here's another tip about angling your tank. Be careful about moving down slopes, particularly if you're in a tiger. The armor on top of tanks is usually the thinnest, so if you're going downhill and depending on the gradient of that hill, you're potentially exposing the weakest part of your tank to small shells like 37mm or 45mm shells. These are the shells that your tank would normally shrug off. And if you're going over a hill, especially if you're in a KV-1, be careful about exposing the curved underside of the front of your tank. The KV-1 only has 75mm of armor down there, so lifting the face makes that plate more perpendicular to a gun and making you a more vulnerable target. Conversely, if you see these momentary lapses of judgment in the enemy, take the shot and score an otherwise difficult kill. Also, there's a little weak spot in the front of the Tiger in case you didn't know. It's in the turret ring between the turret and the body. You gotta be close to hit it though. And here's a quick shooting tip that I suspect not many people are aware of. I dabble in number stuff, and so I actually learned this in a DIY simulation I've built. But if you're facing a flat surface of a tank and you know the armor is uniform across the surface, like the side of a Tiger or a KV-1, shoot the part of the surface that is closest to you. What for, you might wonder? Shooting the closer edge provides a marginal decrease in the angle to the zero line between you and the surface, meaning you'll get a marginal increase in armor pen. The closer you are, the more this will benefit you. At further distances, this is not as important, but if you are within 200 or 100 meters of a target and you're unsure if your shot will make it through, go for the closer edge to boost the shot by 5 to 10 mils. So those are some general tips I have for Tank Squad, especially for new starts. Also, I've made a sound mod where I've made some adjustments to the engine sounds for the German Tiger and Panther, as well as the Soviets T-34 and KV-1. I've also made some adjustments to the internal gunshot sounds from inside the tank, just to beef up the feedback to the player for when they pull the trigger. Where can you find this premium sound mod? Well, if you hop into the Discord, you'll find them in the mod packs channel with links to the banks. Just download the banks from the shared links and override your own banks in your streaming assets directory in your Tank Squad install location. Make a backup though. The game may throw an error the first time you load. That sometimes happens, I'm not too sure why, but it should load a second time. I hope you found this tips video useful. If you want to know more about the campaign management side of things, see this video and this timestamp on how tank yards work and how you can min-max your campaign. Tank Squad's a great game and I'm addicted to the loop of the procedural missions. I can hop in and out of my campaign between my many other projects on the go at the moment, so it's super convenient. If you've watched this far, thank you very much. For my regular viewers, thanks very much. I know many of you like Osfront, Maxim and Nikolai will be back. I've just got an incredible amount of stuff going on in RL at the moment, so I could only make a TS video this week and probably next week as well. I will finish this series in the coming weeks. Things will be a bit rocky until late August, so thanks for sticking it out. And thank you all very much. I appreciate the views and the subs. Until next time, cheers.